I'm going to be using all of the native Blender functions, except I will at the end be using the quad remeasure to give it a good clean topology. So I'm going to drop a UV sphere in. I'm using 64 segments, 32 rings. I'm going to go ahead and shade that smooth. And I'm going to go ahead and bring in a reference image for this. So I'm going to come down to image and reference. And I just pulled one in and dropped it in this folder. Now this reference image is just to kind of give us an idea. Would like this to have come in at a different angle, so I can hit Alt-R and fix that alignment and then rotate it on the X at 90 degrees, and you can move it anywhere you want. It really doesn't matter. I'm not modeling to this, so I don't need it in that fashion, but I will come down to the image area here, and I want to pull this out because we need to change a couple things. I only want this to show up in orthographic view. I don't want it to show up in perspective, so when I press 1, it's going to pop up. When I press this, it's going to free me and I don't have to see it. Now also, I want to bring the opacity down, so I'm going to turn that on and just bring the opacity a little bit. So if you end up with this kind of in front of it, you know, you'll be good. And you can kind of reference it however you wish. This will give you just a little bit of a advantage if you can kind of see what you're trying to achieve. All right, that looks pretty good. Now what we can do is use its own mesh topology to kind of make this work. So I'm just going to hide this now. Alt-H will bring it back, or H will hide the reference image. I'm just going to be working from the center. And so while this is right here in the middle, get back cursor, I can just grab 4 of these quads, and then all I need to do is press Control plus a few times, get it to whatever size that you want it to be. Doesn't really matter. And this is a fun little trick I learned a while back. What you can do is you can actually scale these in edit mode. And since it's round, I really don't want to work with it like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit S to scale it, and Y is the green axis. So I'm going to hit Y and then 0 and enter. And now I've kind of got the shape that I want, only it's inverted. So I'm going to need to invert how this looks. For the next stage, what I want to do is use the knife tool to clean this up. So if we just hit G and Y and try to slam this in, we're going to end up with a very funky shape that breaks the model, breaks the shading and the curvature. So what we can do instead is hit K and use the knife tool, and left click, enter. And I'm going to come over here. I'll do the same thing just to the corners. Then you can come over here. Let's say, of course, you had a ton of manual work to do. Press N, go to edit, and let's drop down auto mirror. And now these cuts will end up on the other side depending on the settings. You have the X, the Y, and the Z. You can auto apply, use clip, a couple different options here. Normally this is just good enough, so we can go from negative to positive, and I don't have to toggle the edit mode, and just click that button one time, and now the topology is on the other side. It does create and automatically select a center loop, which you can technically leave on this one, but normally you can just hit X and then dissolve that edge. But in this instance, that's actually just putting that edge in there already where I have one, so it's fine. And then you don't have any modifiers because auto apply was turned on. So now that we've got that, we can hit G and Y and bring this back just a touch. Wherever you feel comfortable, you can kind of watch the shading. It's going to flip just a little bit here and there. That looks pretty decent so far. And now we can switch over to shade it auto smooth, and that's looking pretty good. And I do want to clean up these edges because they're really not perfect. And it also looks like we could probably just mirror that anyways. So if I mirror that with the same settings, now it's the same on both sides. So little tip, if you want to turn off the apply mirror, turn on toggle edit, click the button again. Now you're just working on one side, and that could make a little more sense to you if you want to do it that way. All right, so we end up with something like this. And if we look back at the reference image, this is far more square than that is. So we can fix that. It's pretty easy. You just have to kind of stare at it and come up with a way to do it. So if I look at it from the side view, it looks like I've got an overhang right here. So what I would want to do is fix this because I've got this face and this face. And I mean, you could do a bunch of different things here, but I'm just going to make it really easy. I'm going to turn on auto merge. I'm going to double tap G and slide that up and connect it. Now from here, before I do too much else, I want to hit K, knife tool, and I'm going to bring this back over. See if I hit X, does that work? No, I don't want to do that. So escape, K, and just find somewhere that looks pretty good and hit enter. Go into edge select, X, and I want to dissolve that edge. And now everything is actually perfect, just the way it should be. Now, if we come back over here, we can see, let's make a save point. If you don't have a save point, just keep creating save points because you need that. Go ahead and apply that and get rid of it. See how the topology looks. It's really not that bad. But I do want to throw a bevel on this. So let's generate a bevel. And we'll look at it in this view, in solid view. And we go back to the matte cap now. I like the silver one sometimes for the bevels. Press T and get rid of that. So give it about 4 segments. I kind of like that. For shading, I want to harden the normals, clean up the corners. And now we actually have some corners in here, which, you know, I want those kind of fixed up. And let's see if we can better see that there. So we'll go from geometry, miter, outer, sharp to arc, and you'll see that just cleaned up that corner very nicely. So if you go back to sharp, shading error, go to arc, then the shading error is reduced. And I kind of like that. Doesn't look too bad. I think my bevel's too big though. So if we look here, it's 0.1, and if we hold shift and bring it down to the left, you can sharpen that bevel up significantly. For the profile, we can kind of leave it the way it is. Geometry, shading, everything else looks really good. And so that's a simple hard surface model setup. And if you want to make this look a little more hard surface, you can come in here, 7 top view, and let's grab some of this, Control plus a couple times. I don't want to overlap what's going on below, so let's do it about like that and hit F to fill and or flatten that out. And then you end up with something like this. Now we can go back to edit and tool this from positive to negative and just apply the mirror. I don't want it. And now that I've done that, I've got that set up there. Looks kind of good. Now if you want to finish this off with something else, just to keep this simple and as a short tutorial as possible, you can go to edit, preferences, add-ons. And if you don't have the quad remesher, you don't really need it because the way I did this is pretty decent. And we type in Carver. This is a hard surface modeling tool with custom brush capabilities. Enable that, and then Control Shift X will get that to work for you. So now I would say let's go spacebar, circle, X, 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 90. I'm going to go right in the middle, just left click, and something like that. And I'm going to hold down the shift button and left click. Give that just a second there, and I've now got a very nice addition to the hard surface here. And you could remove that if you wanted to. You can also come in, and it does put some bevel weight on these. So let's see, what do we want to do? I want to grab the outside edge for the outer piece here. Let's Let's make sure I've got everything selected. Looks like I do. And I want to hit not N, I want to hit Alt N. I'm going to flip the normals on that edge and then hit Control B. And it looks like I've got some other stuff connected. Let's get rid of that. Control B again. And just add a nice little chamfer right there and come back out. And now you've got that set up, which is kind of nice. And you can do the same thing to the other one, and you just end up with a kind of a neat looking hard surface setup. Now for these sides, if I want to take up the front view, Control Shift X, and we can just do the rectangle here. And I'm going to do another one of those rebulls, if you will. Just holding Shift. I'm just going to left click that, give it a second. And now that's a nice little cut on there. I actually like how that looks, pretty decent. Now we're going to get that to the other side. There's two things you got to do for this. This is a little bit more tricky, but if we come over to the auto mirror, take up the orthographic front view. I'm just pressing 1 to get there. What I want to do is I want to mirror the main object, and then I've got to actually mirror the piece, because this is an individual piece that now has to be mirrored, and it's got its own origin, which is the original geometry's origin. So if you reset the origin on this, it's not going to end up in the right place. So you could just frankly leave it where it is. So if I go on the X, I just have to see, my brain's kind of tired. Apply mirror, boom. Okay, so that one is there. I don't want to toggle edit mode every time, even though it looks kind of cool. But we've got clipping here because that is still there. So if I hit H to hide, I need to mirror this now. And if I go ahead and mirror that and hit Alt H to bring it back, I'm going to delete the reference image now, don't need it. And now I've got something a little bit more hard surface. What was that error? Oh, no mesh selected. There you go. There you go. So there's some hard surface modeling tips with all native Blender stuffs. You go in, make your own bevel, change how it looks. Now, every time you do that operation, the bevel should follow the other stuff, the other objects. But if by chance it does not, which that wouldn't look as good, you can grab your main object, or rather grab all these little pieces and then grab the main object, Control L, and we could then copy or link the modifiers. And if we do that, now the bevel is back and we are looking good. So if we come back over into our matte cap shading, you can see there's a couple of little breakies here from doing that operation. Some of this could just be tightened up pretty easy. Let's go back over here, and you can kind of figure out what you need to do this, hopefully from seeing enough hard surface modeling tutorials. Sometimes you can come in here and band these and just create some extra geometry, if you will, and it'll clean that up. And then without any further ado, we can come back over here into the studio, and I want to do a quad remesh on these objects. You can bring the count for the quads to whatever you want. Let's see if 1500 doesn't break it. Create a save point first, and I'm going to leave all of these other settings just the way they are. Don't care. And then I'm going to remesh it. You got to give that. Okay, it looks like it's doing its thing, and I clicked something else and I got this error and thought blah 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 whatever. But even if that does happen to you, just trust in the background that Blender 4.0 plus Remesher has got it, and it's going to be done remeshing that in just a moment, because it's trying to maintain the topology while remeshing it and giving you all quads for the most part. And there we go. I got to agree to this thing's first time using it. I'm actually going to pay for the subscription this time, so I don't just have a demo copy. And if we come back over, we can see how that ends up looking. That's actually really nice, and you can do that to all of the other ones. And actually, now that we've done that and come back over to the mech cap and look, and yeah, still a little bit of cleanup, but you could do some mirroring and some other things. All right, now this wouldn't be complete unless we went into shading. Let's grab everything, GZ1, bring it all up, throw in a plane, scale it just a little bit, and I want to subsurf the plane, give it a couple of subs, apply it, get it out there. I like the more circular planes, if you will. You could do, actually, you could also do the fake infinite background that Blender Guru, maybe one of the first people to do it as a tutorial. Then just make a little plane, grab the spine here, and I'm just going to bevel that and then add some segments and run the segments pretty close to the top and shade it smooth and scale it, then scale it. Then we can take up a top view, maybe something like that. Throw in a camera, Control-Alt-0, kind of bring that in. And we don't need to ever take this and have the entire object, if you will, inside of the camera view. In fact, I'm going to change the rotation, RXX, do that, G and Z, bring it down, bring up the camera stuff here, and we can bring in the focal length just a little bit. I think that looks pretty good. For the background, let's see, I'm just going to cheat here and bring in some material. Doesn't have to be asphalt. Procedural snow. I like that damaged metal for our main object. Let's see how that ends up loading and looking. Take a second for it to show up. That's not too bad. I wonder if it's got some controls. Come here. So the damage detail, I like the detail here. Could be changed a touch. And we're going to put a nicer metal on the outside, Damascus steel. That's pretty interesting. So maybe the outside is aluminum. So I'll type that in and see how we end up looking, because that's kind of mirrored. Yeah, whatever. Looks kind of cool. I want the detail to be smaller though. We can manage that. Grab that, and I didn't texture this, so I think we can just link these materials, Control L. I don't have to play with too much. Grab the main body. I think that looks kind of good. Make it look a little bit more damaged. There we go. Looks good. Not to be too crazy. And for the background, I can just do a basic material and bring it down just a touch. So I just want to see how this ends up looking. All right. I don't like that. So we're going to go ahead and grab everything and link the one material to it all. That looks a little bit more logical. Now you could literally play around with this thing if you want to try to somewhat match the details. There we go. That looks pretty good. So that's it. Catch you guys in the next one.